Hi, I'm Larry Puckett. Well, as I said last week, I got all of the turnouts installed. So we're all ready now to start laying the flex track to make the connections between all of the turnouts. So stick around and I'll show you a few of my personal tips and tricks for laying flex track on your model railroad. So let's roll the opening and then we'll get started. Hit that little red subscribe button, and when the little bell comes up, click on it and click all. First of all, I want to apologize for some of the out of focus shots in last week's video. Unfortunately, we had some technical problems and the camera was unable to focus on the areas of the turnouts that I was trying to show you. And I think that is because the camera needs a solid object on which to focus, and these things are just open air mostly. So I think that's why it was. But at any rate, I did not know about that until well after I had finished doing all of the videos and all of the work on the turnouts. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to go back and reshoot those sections of the video before I uploaded them onto YouTube. There just wasn't time to be able to go back and redo that. But I think most of what I wanted to show you as far as soldering the feeders to the underside of that turnout came out fine once I put it down onto the top of the layout. Now, another concern that people have asked me a couple of times about is when it comes to joining together pieces of track that cross over the division between the two modules. So right here, you can see it's already laid down and it's solid through there. We're going to have one here. We're going to have more back here. So basically, all I'm going to do is take a cutting disc and my Dremel tool, and I've got a little handset that I can use to get it down here flush. And we'll take a look at doing this later on, and I'm just going to make a cut right through here. And that will give me a nice flush cut. And then because these are in perfect alignment, because I use the alignment dowels, then every time I put this together and take it apart and the like, and put it back together and again, then everything is going to be in perfect alignment. However, some people are concerned about doing that kind of thing. So there are a couple of things that you can do. Now, one thing I have, and I've shown this before a few years ago when I did the other modules, and that's these Model Tech rail aligners. And what these are, you can see it looks like model railroad ties, and they make these in various sizes. This is designed for use with US code 83, and you can see here that the microengineering track matches up very nicely with the spacing here on these aligners. And the way these work is they've got these little teeth here that interlock at about a 45-degree angle. So if you bring them together, they're going to pull together naturally and give you regular alignment. So what you would do is, and by the way, if you look right here, you probably can't see it, but there's a hole here, here, and here. In these three ties, they do provide a hole where you can use a track nail or whatever you have to nail these down to the top of your layout. And now, I didn't do that. I glue it down because I don't want to transmit the sound to the plywood underneath. But you can go ahead and you can glue these in place. You can nail them, whatever you want to do. And then you put these down and get them set up before you go about laying any of your track. Then you take the piece of track you're going to be laying down here and you remove the last 4 ties because these have 4 ties. And by the way, as I said, these are available in HO, they're available in OO, and maybe some other scales. I don't know what he has now. But then you can put this down here right on top of that metal layer, and once it's firmly attached to your layout, you solder your rails to the top of these ties. And that way, if you do, both of your pieces of track across the gap, so that they mate up. Then every time that you take it apart and put it back together again, it is going to naturally realign. So these are pretty neat devices. And I use these for all of the gaps on the other module over behind me here. But they're fairly easy to disguise. You can paint them, you can ballast them just like you would normally. Also a neat little feature, right here they have a couple of little solder contacts with holes through the ties. So you can run a wire up through here, solder it in place, and it provides an electrical connection to this metal strip here. And once you have soldered your track to it, then those rails are going to be electrified by the feeders that you have installed. So it's a pretty neat idea. He did a bit of thinking when he put these together. Now, the downside, unfortunately, these are only available through the supplier in England. And it's Model Tech is the company, and he's located in Wales. So if you order these from a supplier in England that has his products, or if you order directly from him, you're going to have to pay the tariff on them when they come here. And I don't have any idea what the tariff is, what it's going to be. I don't know if anybody knows yet. If you're interested in finding out more about these, just look up Model Tech online and you'll go to his site and look for these rail aligners, or what they're called. So they work very well. I'm very happy with the ones I installed. That's one way to go about it. I do know that Clover House makes these PC board ties like these here, and you can cut these to whatever length you want, attach them to the top of your layout, and then solder your rails to these, but you do have to cut a gap between them. So there are other options available here in the US other than these rail aligners, and you can buy these from the UK. You're just going to have to end up paying the tariff on them. Let's go ahead and install some of the Flex Track. And for that, I'm going to come in just a little bit closer for you. There we go. Okay. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to set it up across this area through here. Okay? And that way I'll have the gap in here. I'll show you how I'm going to handle that. I'll show you how to connect it to a turnout. And I'll show you how you go about addressing things like getting it straight and getting everything aligned properly. So with that, I'm going to begin with a piece of the Walthers Flex Track that I've told you about previously. And as you can see, it's misaligned. So all I have to do is give it a push and twist a little bit, and everything's going to come back into alignment. So that's all you have to do, is just kind of twist it and get it lined up properly. And you can hold it usually and move it, and it will come back into a proper alignment. And you can tell that when you've got the two ends meeting. Another thing you can do is take it and take the ends and just tap them against a firm surface like that. And that will usually bring both rails into alignment. So we're going to start off that way. Now, another issue. Most Flex Track and also most turnouts have plastic spikes all the way to the very end of the rails. And that can be very difficult to install rail joiners under. So what I do very often now is I will remove the last tie, and that gives you a clear shot under there. And it's very straightforward. All you do is take a pair of nippers like these, and you can snip it right there underneath of the rail, and it can come right off. Now, and that way we can put rail joiners on here, and they'll slide right up there and mate up with the other piece of track that you want to connect to. Now, don't throw these little pieces away. Save these, because you're going to need those to fit back underneath of your rails later on, so that you don't get that appearance of a missing tie. To prepare one of these for use, and I'll show you this now, so you want to carve off those rail spikes, just like this, because it needs to be able to slip back up underneath of the rails there. And you need to do that in order to be able to have that happen. Another thing that can be very useful is to actually carve a little divot underneath of where the rails and the rail joiner will sit. And that way, when you go to reinsert this underneath of your rails later on, it will slide under, and there will be a little divot there that will allow the track and the rail joiner to lay flat. So that's a little something to do. I think Walther says this in their instructions too. Somebody does, I don't know. But at any rate, that's something you can do. You can also purchase little wooden ties that you can put under there, and I believe Walther sells those. Okay, so let's go ahead and start working on the actual alignment of this. I have already made a center line. I took a black magic marker and a long ruler, and I prefer to use a nice long metal ruler like this one right here. It's aluminum, got it up the hardware store, and just lay it out. And so I'm going to make a straight line from the center line of the turnout I'm connecting to at each end, all the way down to the next piece of track I'm going to connect to. And then once that's done, you have a reference so that you'll be able to make sure that you get your piece of track aligned properly. Now another thing, it's a good idea also to take your piece of flex track like this and sight down it and make sure that it's straight, because it can get kind of wobbly at times. And if it does, you can put it on a flat surface, on the floor, for example, a table or workbench, or the top of the model railroad, and get it to straighten out again. And then you're ready to lay it. So let's go up here to the other turnout that I'm going to be connecting this to, and I'll show you that. Okay, so here is one of the turnout that I'm going to be connecting that piece of flex track to. So you can see right here, I've already inserted a couple of rail joiners to the ends of these rails here. And that's so when I bring it up and have the adhesive down, I can just slide it right in here. And it's good to do a test fit and find out that everything's properly aligned. And you can see the spot right here where we're going to need to reinsert this tie later on after we've soldered the rail joiners together. So I'm going to take that back out of there. But you can see it slid right in there because I prepared it to fit under the rail joiner here. And we'll look at how to go about soldering rail joiners later on. Now make sure that your rails meet up here, everything is flush, connected together, and then you're ready to get your adhesive down. So we've checked it out, we've tested it, made sure everything's going to join up right. It's got a nice straight alignment here. We've got our we've got our center line marked. So let's go ahead and I'll get the adhesive out and we'll lay that down. Okay, I'm going to take the piece of flex track out and set it over here out of the way. And we're going to run the beaded adhesive all the way down here to the cut point. So I've included all of that in the video. So I'm going to get my liquid nails for projects and lay a bead down here. And I'm just going to use a little wiggly line to increase the amount of adhesive that I apply. Right there to the end. And we'll put the cover back on. And this stuff never dries out with these little covers on here. And I still haven't found out where I bought these things. Then I've got my plastic putty knife. And one of the real nice things about this road bed is how nice and smooth the adhesive lays on here. And it goes on in a fairly even, consistent thickness. So there's less of a tendency to build any up. Let me move this back before I get some adhesive on it. Like this, and down here. Okay. I've tended to get it over a little bit far on that side, so we'll clean that edge up. Now I'm sure some of you are sitting there saying, well, he just laid that adhesive line down and now he can't see his little straight line that he put for the center line down the middle of the foam road bed. To be able to see the center line and where you want to lay your track or your flex track, I go back and make a little hash mark, about every 6 to 8 inches or so. And that way I can see where my center line is. Not a problem. Put a little bit more adhesive back down here. Get it out of the way. Okay. Okay, so one more time I'm going to check and make sure that it's straight. Get it all lined up. Good. And then I'm going to start up at this end here where I've got rail joiners that I've tested. I'm going to slide those rails into the rail joiners. And then I'm going to start laying the track down. Just smoothly drop it into position, like so. Like that. And then I'm going to go down to the far end of the layout here, and I'm going to sight back down here and make sure everything is nice and straight. And it's straight right to this point here, and then it wobbles off a bit. So I'll pull it back in line here. And one thing you can do with your long ruler is lay that against your rails, and that will tell you whether you've got a good straight alignment through here. Okay, now let's see how that is. Okay, one more try. I'm going to go back down and take another sighting down the line here. And that is pretty darn good. I see one little spot that I need to tweak a bit. And I'll pull that back into alignment this way. And check it one more time. Because one place that you will definitely notice if a track is not straight is on a long straight section like this one here. Okay, so now that goes down almost all the way to the double crossover. And so now I'm going to roll it and make sure that we've got good contact with the adhesive. And the great thing is, because I only put a light layer adhesive down, nothing is squeezing up between the ties. So it's going to be fine as long as you've got your rail joiners laid, you've checked to make sure that your rails are going to fit flush here at this end, and at both ends really. And then check it by sighting down the length of it, make sure it's in there, and then check between the ties here to make sure that your center line is positioned down the middle of the track between your ties. So I can see the center line there, I can see it here, I can see it right there and in here. So not a problem, I'm able to see the center line the entire way, and it's going to be lined up nice and straight. So that's all there is to laying flex track in a straight line. Now of course later on when we get ready to do the corner module to fit the two modules together, then we will be able to do these curves that I've been talking about. So we'll get to that later. I think as soon as I get all the track down and we get the switch machines installed and powered up, then I will go ahead and build the corner module instead of waiting until this is completed, because I think it would be nice to be able to show you guys how to do things on a corner module as well. I'm going to pin it, so that's one of the important steps always, is get it pinned down so it's going to stay in place, and those pins will hold it down as well as hold it in position. So I'll do that the entire length of this. Every 8 or 10 inches or so, I like to get it nice and stable while the glue or adhesive is setting up. Put another pair here, like this, and then I'll go down to the far side there at the joint, and we'll put one right here, like this. And then I'm not going to touch anything more until after the glue sets up. And with this stuff, a thin layer like this, it will set up overnight, no problem at all. And then I will come back with my cutting disc in my Dremel tool, and I will just do a straight chop right down through here, and that will give me a nice straight line through here. And I've already showed you a couple of different ways that you can align these. I'm not going to worry about it because these modules are only going to be taken apart if I ever move somewhere else or sell it. But one thing you can do is, once these are down and you've got 2 pieces of track, you can install rail joiners across the alignment gap there. So that's something to think about, and we'll do that once we get to that point. And that'll be next week. I will make the cut here, and we will finalize the position of the track, and then I'll be able to do this other side as well. So now that we've got all of the flex track and all of the turnouts laid, next week we're going to start work on installing the switch machines to control the points on these various turnouts. So come on back then and join me, and we'll get a lot more done on the model railroad. In the meantime, have a great weekend, have a great week, and I'll see you then. Bye now.